welcome back to Big Fellas. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. This is going to be a big one, mate.
Yeah, it was a big one. Now, not so big. So it's another loser story, which is always exciting. Who do we have on today, Mark?
So we're going across the pond again today, Dazza. This is Neal Bendesky. The guy was 32 stone and has lost 199 pounds. I think it's over 14 stone. Wow. Like the weight of an average man he has lost. This is crazy. I think we'll warn you now, this guy is an absolute fireball of enthusiasm. I mean, he has got so much to say, and yeah, his story is incredible. He's, like I said, he was 32 stone. He had a cardiac arrest and effectively died and came back from that. He has overcome cancer and he now runs half marathons, has even run a marathon. This guy, his story, his journey is like nothing you've heard before. But yeah, I think we just leave it at that, Darren, and jump straight into it, yeah?
Yeah, let's go. Neal, how are you doing?
It's great to be with an unbelievable threesome. Think about it. Between the number of weight that Mark has lost and Darren has lost and I've lost, you're talking here, you talk about Lauren, their podcast people and interest, over 400 pounds, whatever that is in stones. It's probably over 30 stones, right? That's a pretty
big
darn
number.
good number.
It's
my
a
name
big
is
number.
Neal Bendesky. I am known as the 199 guy. Why? Because 11 years ago, I was 450 pounds. So I guess technically I was 32.143 stones, right?
32 stone in English money.
I was a big dude. And
wow.
I was a prisoner of my job. I was 1 foot in the grave. And I was in athletics. You know, I was a senior sports marketing executive for teams and team in the NBA, a Major League Baseball team. And, you know, I worked for a college that won these national championships. If you wonder why I like Miami, you know, we won championships. You know, not like, you know, what happens in the UK, because that's the best football in the world, right?
Absolutely.
Of course.
There's only one football.
But, you know, listen, I was, like I said, those things, a prisoner of my job, 1 foot in the grave, and I was representing athletics, but I didn't really look the part, you know, when you're in that scenario. You know, I tell people I poorly medicated my body with the drug of choice, food. Okay. I learned a formula for reimagining my lifestyle. I wrote a book called Never Too Late. And today I'm a wellness advocate and a motivational speaker for groups and companies with wellness initiatives with an objective of creating a chain reaction of inspiration for others through lifestyle transformation. So I'm not a real big D-word guy. You know, you won't hear me say that word diet very often, okay? Because what I realized is if we can get one person on this podcast to believe that you can do it, that you are something. Listen, I'm going to throw this out to you, Darren and Mark. How many of you have seen a miracle?
Oh, it's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in my case, I think I'm a miracle because I lost 199 pounds, survived sudden cardiac death on August 2nd, 2016, and recently conquered cancer. Now, That said, 9 days after 2 stents were put in, I was back in the gym. And in 10 days, I'm going to run my 37th race on the Vegas Strip here in the United States, in Las Vegas, Nevada, my 37th race since my heart attack. So in a sense, I feel I'm a miracle. But you know what? We're here to help other people. So in all due respect, I think everyone on this podcast, everyone is a miracle waiting to be unfolded. You know, I'm a movie buff. So, and you'll hear me give my examples of how I became the 199 guy and various things like that over the course of the podcast. But in moving forward, if you've ever seen the movie Bruce Almighty, you know, it's on YouTube. It has Morgan Freeman and Jim Carrey. And what does Morgan Freeman say as God. He says, if you want to see a miracle, you got to be the miracle. Hello, everybody. Today's your day to write your script to be a miracle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's in our hands, isn't it? It's definitely, everyone is capable, right? Everyone can do this. But you've got to make it happen. You've got to start that miracle yourself.
Yeah, but when you write your script, like let's take one of the subjects that I like to talk about: the importance of doing hard things. Now, think about it. Losing, as you would say, over 14 stones, surviving sudden cardiac death from a hereditary issue. Eventually, you wake up one day and you say, let's find my pivot point. Because, it's interesting. I have a mentor that wrote a book called The Power of Who. It's more kind of a networking of what you need to do. I'm a sports marketing person. I said that. And Bob Bodine is his name. And he also wrote a book called Two Chairs. And when I was in a different part of my career, so I started out, as a sports marketing person. I currently teach at Boston College, in public relations. So I want my students to learn what Darren, as far as how to do a podcast, right? So, and in all due respect, as I was doing what I was doing, I realized that I had to volunteer. I had to get involved. And as me getting involved led to putting in a lot of time, a lot of hours, the weight started going on. The pounds started going on. All of a sudden, I was 300, 350, 400, 450 pounds. And actually, in 2012, I was thinking to myself, gosh, I've had a really tough scenario. My wife and I did an internship at USA Basketball in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center. And that's where I met my wife, Laura. She's my gold medal, right? I say that, from the Olympic standpoint. But in all due respect, okay, all those things kind of put me in a space of being in an arena, being in a stadium, or at anybody out there in podcast land. You have a situation where you're at work and, I'm just going to grab, a fast food item, right? I just watched the movie, The Founder, about the history of Mickey D's, McDonald's. And those type of things were what led to me being a big guy. I have a friend of mine, Jose Sotolonga, who just retired as a sports commissioner here in one of the states, in the state of Florida, and actually in Miami. And he tells the story how I could eat, because I was a binge eater, I could eat 2 extra large pizzas with extra cheese, pepperoni, and just boom, 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 like that, with no water. Can you imagine that, right? Because I love pizza, right? But, I try to tell people, back to the focus here, doing hard things puts you in a space where you get to a pivot point. And in my particular case, my pivot point was to a scenario where I was in this situation where, man, I went to this seminar in St. Louis in 2013, actually, where I was in a, where Bob Bodine was talking about how he was a professional recruiter. And if you wanted to get hired by him, you had to look healthy. I didn't look the part. So I have that situation. So I get his book, The Power of Who, and I put it in my windshield in my truck at the time. But I wasn't ready. I watched it for a couple years. So one of the first things is your pivot point doesn't just come overnight. It comes through some type of scenario. So here I am after this session. I have this book in my windshield. I have moved from different places because I was in South Florida as a sports administrator for over 20 years, working for the University of Miami. I mentioned for, the Florida Marlins baseball team, and then the vice president of the Miami Heat. So those particular things are happening, right? And then my wife and I are victims of identity theft. Pretty hard. It's about as low as you can go. So I moved initially to South Dakota. And in doing such, I told people that I was part of the witness protection program. Why would I go from South Florida to South Dakota, right? But the foundation of the people are such a key. And that's what my first lesson that I share today with your audience is that you need to surround yourself with love and support, a community of love and support. And I didn't have that. I had it with my family, and they were always telling me different things. But when I'm in St. Louis, like I said, I love pizza. My son's working at a local pizza place, and I used to go to this place to see my son, and I would get 2 slices of pizza, and I would sneak a third. And one day, Mark and Darren, he walks out, Justin is his name, and he has a salad in his hand. And he says, Dad, I think it's time for a salad. Right? So I started realizing I heard, it's in my book this way, but I didn't listen. So here I am in St. Louis. I have this book in my hand. I've been told it's time for a salad. What am I going to do? So I decide to start walking every day at a track at where my other son, Logan, went to high school. And in St. Louis, the weather isn't always agreeable, right? Some days it's frozen. Some days it's snowy. Some days it's windy. Not perfect conditions. So I end up, walking every day. And I was 450 at the time. And then I lost 35 pounds walking every day. I showed up. That was a big part of the lesson, because when you start showing up, all of a sudden you get motivated, right? And there's a formula to this. But back to what I'm saying here is that when you get into this scenario, you're 35 pounds less. You're now 415.6. I'm working in St. Louis. I had some very good opportunities. Like I said, first in South Dakota, then I came to St. Louis. And then I got another professional opportunity to work for an indoor football team here in Arizona, where I still live. And that was that. Okay, here's the problem. I still didn't feel better, because that's part of the process. When both of you did it, right? Maybe it was, I should have brought him downstairs. Sometimes when I talk, I bring out my size 62 jeans and I say, I used to have to go see Omar the tent maker to wear clothes, right? And
62
it
jeans.
was tough. It was very hard. And I've learned to be more vulnerable about it. But the big picture is, where am I at? So I'm at 415.6. I come here to South Florida, like I said, Arizona. And it's my job, Darren and Mark, to get sponsorships. So one of the sponsors I got happened to be a worldwide gym now. It's called Orange Theory Fitness. And I went there, and because I got a free membership out of the program. And for the first 5 weeks, I failed. And I'm like kind of disappointed. And one day, October 12th, 2015, was the second pivot point. What happened? So there was a little 3-year-old boy waiting for his mom. He's on his iPad or whatever he's playing game-wise. And he looks at me and he says, "Are you Santa Claus?" I was wearing a 5X red top, right? My first reaction wasn't PG-13. I went, ho, 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 what do I got to do? And I learned the value of nutrition. I went to the trainer, Kyle Settles, and he started to share with me. And I've come to this understanding by telling you this first part of my story, that to do hard things, there's a formula. You get that pivot point. I told you that, right? Then somebody motivates you. You get that pivot point, right? And then as you get into it, you moderate your food. This isn't a diet. You're making a lifestyle transformation. So in reimagining that, you start to become accountable, because your goals are starting to happen and you want to do more goals. At least I did. And so the second part of it is motivation plus accountability plus, until I got cancer, sustainability. So I was able to do for 7.5 years a sustainable goal where I dropped over 199 pounds. I ran races. I showed up in Orange Theory. I just celebrated, and my goal is in 10 years to get there, to get 2,999 classes. Now, you might ask me, motivation plus accountability plus sustainability equals lifestyle success. That's the formula. Okay. Now, 80% is nutrition, 20% is exercise. So you're going through this process like I have. And let me ask you this. In what I just described, with what you guys have done for your listeners, because this is an amazing storyline, the three of us, okay? What do you think about that equation, and how does it relate to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, everything you said is just sort of resonates with me and how where I was and what I did. And yeah, I very much had that pivot point. And I think it was like what you said, Neil. It wasn't a eureka moment, certainly not second time around. First time there kind of was. Second time, it was just a number of events, a number of things that all come together. I remember my eldest child talking to his friends about, talking about my dad. My dad's lazy, and that hit hard. But on its own, that wasn't enough. I remember just getting aches and pains in my hip, thinking, I'm getting old here. Or maybe that's just me getting old, or is it because I'm the heaviest I've ever been? And there was lots of little things that got to that point where I said, you know what? And then it was like last year, I'm turning 40. I need to make a decision here and improve my life. And so that's what it built up to.
You know, that's what it takes. Some type of little family member showing that love, because it's blind love. You know,
kids speak the truth. They don't filter it. And that was it.
Yeah.
And he said to one of his friends, my dad is lazy. And that hit hard. But there was, there's something in it.
And Mark, I know you play soccer, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Try to.
Or excuse me, football. Sorry. I
yes,
get it. Okay.
The real game.
So, yeah, the real way. Yeah, I get it. In fact, we have the son I mentioned from St. Louis is now in Paris studying the fragrances. And he will come right out and tell you, I don't like American football. You know, I'm a soccer guy, right? I'm a football guy. I'm a real football guy. So listen, I get, your scenario, but how much better did you feel when you got on the field and you were able to, make a difference being around that group? First of all, it's just like me being when I go to Vegas in 10 days, that corral, you got 25,000 people that are celebrating that their fitness, their nutrition, and they're able to be a weekend warrior. But at the end of the day, it's such an exhilarating experience to be with that type of group, when you're out there. So I've also learned that what you just said, Mark, kudos to you, because you, as this group knows, as our listeners are understanding, this could be somebody else out there, and you need to be vulnerable. And, more recently, when I went and had my radiation, a pencil beam therapy for my cancer, and it wasn't beating cancer that was the hard thing. It was the side effects in order to do it. It was an 18-month thing. And one of the things I told the doctor team at Mayo, I said, I don't want to gain weight. I have a brand. I want to maintain it. Once you know that the hormonal shot caused a 50-pound weight gain, okay, and that sucked. And then I couldn't control some of my normal functions. I was embarrassed, and I've learned, like you just did, Mark, and again, I'm giving you kudos, is that, you got to be vulnerable, So when I had 2 procedures done after a big event that I do here in the States, that the summer was horrific, terrible. I mean, and finally in October, I started feeling a little better. So I went to my doctor, and more recently, I've come back on podcast again. I'm feeling better. I look a little bit better. I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm also older. I'm living. I'm here, right?
You're here. Absolutely. You're here,
That's
Neal.
it. That's it. And that's going to lead to my next part of my story is that, but in saying that, I've lost 33 pounds. I weighed in this morning, 33 pounds since mid-November. So
Fantastic.
it's a process, and it's not where I want to be yet, but I'm encouraged. My confidence is better. My clothes feel better. I mean, these are all positive things. So how did I come up with the 199 guy? Would you like to know that answer, Darren?
Yeah, go on, Neal. Tell us.
Okay. All right. Well, believe it or not, I'm a sports guy. But in the States here, they give awards, I guess actually universally, the Oscar. And an actor by the name of Jeff Bridges, and he played in a movie with Colin Farrell, and he won an Oscar. Jeff did. And he was a struggling, drunken country western singer, right? And this movie moved me. What happened? There were several parallels, but bottom line is Jeff Bridges played a country western singer that was at the end of his career. He happened to be 57 years young. At the time I started my journey, guess how old I was? 57 years young, right? So that's first parallel. He was a drunk, right? I was a binge eater. Then he was basically, not a headliner anymore. At one point he was called Bad Blake, but guess what? He wasn't that anymore. So his manager says, well, why don't you do something productive, and why don't you go ahead? And this is relatable to everybody on this podcast, because you all reach a point where you get up, your life is full of ups and downs. It's not always a complete success story. And there's going to be things that happen. So here's this guy, he's a drunk. I'm a binge eater. Here's this guy, he's 57. I'm 57. Here's a guy that gets told by his manager to write a song. He did, called The Weary Heart. And he gave it to one of his clients in this fictitious movie. Colin Farrell played in the movie, and he looked the part. I wrote a plan about how to get better, how to lose weight. That's what this podcast talks about. But it was multiple plans. You talk about high carb, low carb, counting your macros on MyFitnessPal, which is what I've done from the beginning, all those types of things. So finally, where it really resonated, and I hope it does the same for other people in the audience, is that, when you think about it, I'm in a situation where all these things have coincided, like in the movie, and Bad Blake goes to a show where he is the warm-up. It was in Phoenix. Where do I live? Phoenix, right? Arizona. So he goes and sees his manager, and he says, and he picks up his royalty check. And his manager looks at him. He says, congratulations. He said, I told you there was still gas in the tank. And that's kind of what I feel, is that whether you're 25, 35, 45, you've had something in your life emotionally, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe you lost your job, maybe something happened, with one of your siblings, and you're dealing with it. And what do? We get emotional. We lose our focus. We don't do things necessarily that put you in a position of empowering your decision-making again. That's what you want to do. If you're ready and you're listening on this podcast to transform your life, just like making decisions about who you're going to elect in office, it's time for personal growth. It's never too late to emphasize that your lifestyle transformation can start now. No waiting for what we just went through, the New Year's resolution. Break free from the limiting mindsets with a powerful shift. And I think it's the next segment I like to talk about, which is do words versus can't words, right? So when you get started, sometimes people say, oh, in order to join a gym or to go to Weight Watchers or whatever you decide to do, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to, but not many people that have been on this podcast have lost 199 pounds. Okay. So you could easily say it's too expensive, right? I look at it as it's an investment in you. Okay. I'm too busy. I just saw, what's his name? Tony Robbins. And he had one of his staff members, and she was talking about AI, and she was talking about taking the time. And she goes, I don't think I have the time. And Tony kind of made a comment back to her because he's so good at what he does. And what did he say? Take 10 minutes of your day and start building on it. And, that's so if you're too busy, make it a priority. I'm embarrassed. I was embarrassed. Modify. Start with modifications. Go from 3 slices to 2. Do something that starts to create a positive mindset, which is very important. I'm not ready. Well, today you're listening and you're talking to 3 people that have done some pretty amazing things in their transformation. As Mark said, it was a family pivot point. I talked about a 3-year-old that was my guardian angel that basically said, are you Santa Claus? Okay. Darren has his story, right? So all that said, move forward. Oh, then there's the housewife that says, oh, I have kids. Gyms have daycare, right? This morning, I wasn't feeling it. I won't kid you. But I felt that I needed some energy for my friends Mark and Darren, for their audience. So I went to an Orange Theory workout. They had a 12-minute run. That was part of it. If you've never been to Orange Theory, like I said, the goal is that you wear a heart rate monitor and you want to get at least 12 minutes in the in the 84% or higher zone. And you want to, also get in the fat burning zone, which again, that's all part of the formula. And so they give you treadmill workouts. They give you floor workouts. I kind of add a little bit to my workouts because I'm really trying to get my core better, which is really important. As a soccer guy, Mark, you would know this, right? Is that, running, to me, the core is so very important. And I have tough knees. We all have challenges, right? And so I get a 10-pound weight and I'll do side to side, lower side, upper side, boom, boom, 250 of them in between all that they tell me to do, because I want to maximize things. So if you're tired, realize that a workout creates an energy boost. And finally, a lot of people say, I'll start on Monday. Action yields results.
Neal,
right?
I think something you said there, Neal, I think is absolutely right. And the reason I bring this up is because, funnily enough, my wife, she goes to the gym early in the morning, so before work. So 6 a.m., she's out the door, she goes to the gym. And she said the other day, just having one of those days where I just don't want to. And we sort of said, well, actually, look, it's really easy to wake up and say, I don't want to do it today, and make those excuses, like you say. But how often do you come back from the gym and say, I really regret doing that? Never. You never do. Like, you never go out for a run and come back and think, I wish I hadn't have done that. You're always really happy that you've done it.
Yeah.
The blood's flowing. You feel great. You're proud of yourself.
Energized, yeah.
But let me just footnote something, because I have a client that is more my friend that I'm helping. And his first week, he lost 5 pounds and he didn't do any exercise. And he's a cool dude, but he's argumentative. You know those type of people, right? Right? And, I'm going to go out and walk 3 miles. See, I come from a different mindset where you need to build up your heart, your breathing. You need to feel comfortable. You don't want to put yourself where you get injured. So you got to listen to your body out there that, okay, you started doing something with nutrition, and then you're going to go out there and you're going to exercise, right? So I was very fortunate. You all know Muhammad Ali, right?
Of course.
Right.
Absolutely.
And my current goal is I want to be the Muhammad Ali of weight loss. So this is my third time. So when I was with the Marlins baseball team, I lost over 100 pounds. And there was a couple that one was a dietitian and one was an exercise physiologist. And long story short is that what I learned from that group, that couple, is I used to go and do 21 minutes in 3-minute segments. So the first week, I would train like an Olympic athlete in cross training. So I would do 30 seconds as fast as I could go, right? And then I built up that within myself, and then I made it 24 minutes. Then I made it 27 minutes. Then I made it, and I kept progressing. So before my first son was born, Justin, I could run an hour. That was pretty cool. All right. Now, I never did a race because I was kind of intimidated. And then I found another solution in my head, current one, that says it's about finished lines, not finished times, right? Go enjoy it, but at the same time, you just don't go out and run. Like I've done, I said this would be 37 races. I've done 17 half marathons and 1 full marathon. And in saying such, I couldn't even walk around the block in 2013. So it's like the transformation gives you new opportunities, to do things that maybe you never thought you could do in your life, right? So transformation starts with a single decision. It's never too late to take control. Prioritize your health, like your wife's doing right now by getting up early in the morning, Darren, okay? Inspire others by leading by example. You, as I said earlier, are the miracle waiting to happen.
Absolutely. Love that, Neal.
I think what you were saying there is true when it comes to exercise. So, look, if you're at your original weight, Neal, which I think we said was about 32 stone, of course, like you've got to be realistic. You're not just going to go and run a marathon a week later, right? It took years, I imagine, of diet, training, exercise to do that. And I think that's the same with food as well. I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of people make is they try and do so much so quickly. So it's a complete change, and you respect it, of course, because the intention is good. Everything's up there is good. But the problem has to be sustainable. And I think you have to see weight loss as a long-term plan. It's not something that you can achieve necessarily overnight, but by making small changes regularly, sticking to them, building those habits, that's where I think you get the best results.
I would say that, and I'm curious, Darren, you told us about your wife. Mark's told us about his son. What was your pivot point?
So there's been a few pivot points through my life. The first one was getting married. Wanted to shift some timber, shall we say, in the UK. Shift some weight for the wedding day. So did diet plan then. Similar to your story, mate, I'll be honest. When I joined the police, it's a very unsociable job. We had a lot of fast food because you're late off. The lifestyle isn't very good at times. So put on a lot of weight. Then mental health become a bit of an issue, sort of like trauma related. And that was a bit of a spiral for me, a problem. And then that got so bad that at the start of COVID, I think I didn't test, but I probably had a COVID. So I had some sort of chest infection, was struggling to breathe. So it's asthma symptoms. So I had that cough for about 4 months. Eventually couldn't breathe out very well. Could breathe in, fine. Couldn't breathe out. It was really weird. Went to the doctor, and the doctor was fantastic. And he said to me, "You've got 2 young children. You are having these problems because you're obese. You're too big. Your body will not fight illnesses very well. It will be a problem for you. And if you want to see your children grow up and meet your grandkids, it's something you need to get on top of. And that for me, you know, like Mark was saying, I knew I struggled. My knees used to hurt walking up the stairs. I knew I was unfit. I wouldn't play football like we do now. I knew all this. I struggled with my fitness tests in the police. I always just about managed to pass them, but they were never easy for me. So all the signs were there, but it was just the doctor telling me that you're probably not going to get to meet your grandkids that was like, right, I need to deal with this. So yeah, that I would say would be my main pivot. That's what really sort of kicked me up the backside.
So in my book, which I've mentioned a little bit, Never Too Late, okay, that shows you me at 450 pounds, right? And obviously that was at the best, which I was 189.4. But I kind of want to segue now into what you just talked about, Darren, because I think in my book, I call it your CEO cornerstones. So if you take your story and just a general story for our audience, let's talk about this. And when we're in our case, right, what are we trying to do? We're trying to establish ourselves in some way, shape, or form, right? So the CEO cornerstones basically put you in a space initially where you're the CEO of your life. You know, you're in charge of your life, right? And you go to college. Some of you go to high school. Somewhere in another time, based on what we talked about earlier, I'll give you my whole wellness clock, you know, because like in your description, Darren, where you're talking about your grandkids, I kind of looked at it as a sports person, said, before the clock kicks down to 0, 0, 0, I have this chance to transform my lifestyle. And if I don't do it now, I'm going to be dead. And you know what? I was. On August 2nd, 2016, I did die, okay? I had sudden cardiac death. Less than 50% of the people have a come out of that, the Widowmaker, and less than 10% come on their own, okay? What happened? I was doing an interview, and, you know, God comes into play, okay? And as I continue with the CEO cornerstones, I'll just tell you, I'm going to come back to God and belief. I'm going to talk to you about faith, because that interview was supposed to be on a Monday, the day before, and the cameraman was not available. So the next day, I did this interview with, you know, here in the States, Fox, and 30 minutes after the crew left, I fell face forward. I don't remember it. I went in, you know, they turned me over. They went and got the defibrillator. They cracked some ribs. You know, I came to on my own, and I end up at a hospital pretty close to my house, and I'm a sales guy. I guess you could figure that out from this call, right? All right. So my wife calls the American indoor football coach. Sorry, I got to put it in those terms, right? Because, you know, mates are not going to understand that, you know, relative to that scenario. But bottom line is that my friend Kevin Guy is the coach, and I'm talking to the guy, Dr. McKenna, in charge of ER emergency room, and I'm saying, dude, just give me 15 minutes, I'll be fine, right? I don't remember what's happened. I've been taken, you know, from Orange Theory Fitness, where I did the interview, okay, to the hospital. I don't remember any of this stuff. Kevin Guy, thank God, because my wife made the call to get him there, said, tell him to shut them up, that he's a sales guy. He's going to stay here overnight. And another part of fate is the first cardiologist that came in, he was talking about putting some contraption in me. And I go, look, I got too much I want to do, right? You know, relative to moving forward. So I had been at a charity golf tournament. We all get involved in our communities and do what we need to do, because that's the next thing. You're the CEO of your community. And in my particular case with that, I met a guy that was in charge of a hospital foundation. I told my wife to call him, get me a renowned cardiologist from that particular hospital group. And 2 stints later, 11 years later, or whatever it is now, I'm still living, right? So, you know, 9 years. So in all due respect, you know, I used to tell people, how many of you have a friend that hasn't seen their 60th birthday? that was almost me. Okay. That was
Yeah.
almost me. So back to CEO Cornerstones. You have CEO of your life. Then you get your first job. And what do? You're the CEO of your community because you get involved. You go to a church group. You go to a special group. You do what you need to do, right? Then the third one, because you start to wake up and realize. I read a book called, goodness gracious, I can't think of it right now, but the author, Alchemist. And Pablo writes, and it sold billions of copies. And he talks about two words that I never read, and it's called personal legend. We all are trying to develop our personal legend. But being the CEO, the third one, of your legacy means that you realize it's not about your personal legend. It's about helping others find theirs. So you get to that point. Now, this is where Mark resonates with me. Because the fourth CEO is you're the CEO of your family. You realize, like I've realized, that, yeah, I could go do some of these jobs working for the teams again. You know, that I'm teaching now, like I said, at Boston College. So that gives me the ability to engage with people again, which I enjoy. I love to give back. But bigger picture is, who's the most important people to me? My wife, Laura, my son, Justin, who's in the second year of doctorate program at NYU, and our son, Logan, who is in the second year of graduate level for the fragrances in Paris. I mean, what better place to be? But thank God both of them took after my wife because they're both material scientists, right? I'm a sports guy, obviously. So all that said, you become the CEO of your corner in the last part of the CEO Cornerstones, which is in my book. And I think, Darren, what you said about your story, and Mark, what you said previously about your story, I think that can relate to everybody on this podcast as far as why do you do it? We told you that. What is the formula? And now, what is the evolution of your life? And where are you at? Think about that right now. Where are you at as far as where you want to go? Now, I'm going to say this to you, that one of the things that I love to talk about is, I usually end this, but because this was the UK and because this was two of my friends that I want to get to know and do positive things with, and because the audience can relate, I have a different closing for today. But for initially right now, think about what we've done together today, okay, for this podcast. Now, listen, if you know Neal Bendesky, the 199 guy, I am all over the place a little bit. That's part of my strategy, okay? But I always bring it back to core, what we're here about. And it starts with your attitude. And attitude's like a flat tire. If you don't fix it, you don't go very far. I had several flat tires, and I started fixing them. And I'm happy that I did, because I get to help people like, this audience, wherever it is in the world. And whether I sell one book or 100 books or don't sell any, if one person realizes that it is your attitude that gets you to go from the couch to the concrete, okay? Because that's what I did, okay? And everybody, I say this to people, run the race of your life, whatever that race is, through lifestyle transformation. So it's not a road race. This is the life, the race of life, okay? Take that analogy, attitude. Take that analogy, run the race of your life, whatever that race is, through lifestyle transformation, and say, what is in this call, in this podcast, that I can relate to, that helps me enjoy my life better?
And I think that's absolutely right. And I think you were talking about the different things that you're the CEO of, right? So we focus on our careers, we focus on our families, we focus on everything, and we often neglect our health as a result of those other things, right? The problem is, if your body isn't firing on its full cylinders because you're not fueling it well, you're not looking after it well, then those other things also take a hit as well. So I think you're absolutely right. I think if you're going to focus on one thing in 2025 to improve, focus on your health, because that will have a positive impact across other parts of your life that matter as well.
I mean, in saying that, I've listened to some of your other podcasts. You had a Navy SEAL on, okay? And I think one of the lessons I learned from that I agree with is this isn't like you got 45 minutes to an hour on a daily basis, and maybe even 5 days a week and have some rest days, okay, is a better formula than going and thinking, I just got to go work out all day. I'd rather you spend time on reading about a meal. Like this morning, I tried something. I'm part of this transformation challenge in Orange Theory Fitness. It's an 8-week program, and we all share on our WhatsApp, different recipes and stuff, right? So this morning I made my own pancake scenario, because you got to fuel your workout before, you go to that scenario. I'm sure your wife knows that too. She just can't just go have a shake, because to me that, it doesn't work. It doesn't fuel your body. Again, everybody's different. But in my particular case, so I took cottage cheese, I took egg whites, and I put it in a blender. And I blended it, and I made, and made some pancakes. And I felt really, really well today, for this. And, usually Wednesdays or Thursdays, the middle of the week, you're kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through. So, again, what your Navy SEAL said, I agree with from your previous podcast. Another one was show up and do the work. Be consistent. Now, I'm going to read a little bit something, because it's one of my things that I enjoy saying. My daily objective, if you're out there thinking about your objective, is to show up and do the work. No matter what anyone says, show up and do the work. If they praise you, show up and do the work. If they criticize you, show up and do the work. If no one notices you, you see those things on Instagram. Nobody really noticed that I was there at 5:30 in the morning, right? Right? Just show up and do the work. Just keep showing up and doing the work and leading the way. You are leading the way. Your family is motivated, Mark, right? Your son? Dad
Absolutely.
Now he's going to be so braggadocious about his papa, right? He's all happy. Lead with passion. Fuel with the optimism. Have faith. Power up with love. Maintain hope. Be stubborn. Fight the good fight. Refuse to give up. Ignore the critics. Oh, man, there's plenty out there. Listen, my friend in Miami, he's saying to me, I'm confused. I said, I won't say his name. You got to basically focus on what is important to you and what you want to achieve. Listen to few, but surround yourself with love and people that care. Believe in the impossible. Show up. Do the work. You'll be glad you did. True grit leads to true success. Show up and do the work.
Love that, Neal. Absolutely love that.
In giving you that closing quote that I want to find. Now, one other leave behind, again, you could use this however you want to use it, is I have a strategist. His name is Alex Vergara. He had 20 years of experience putting together Disney Worldwide of Sports, which was a unique concept in that they took the Disney parks and they created venues where track and field, baseball, softball, whatever it was, basketball, and people could come in and participate with their families and then stay at the, and then go to the parks, right? Interesting concept, okay? That's what Alex did. And in doing such, when we sat down, he told me, and again, this is another point of what Darren just said. So this is a book. It was empty at one point, but when I was organizing my book, I decided initially I wanted to have 13 chapters. Why? Because there's 13 miles in a half marathon, right? And then when I got cancer, I decided I'm going to delay my book. I told my publisher, who's awesome, Kelly Cole from Books for Athletes. I said, Kelly, I'm going to delay this because I want others to realize that 1 in 6 males have cancer, in my particular case. Okay. So I look at this and say, if those are the numbers, I need to give people understanding on what that means. When somebody says to you, you have cancer, it kind of puts you in a different space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm sad that I gained 50 pounds and 20 pounds before that from COVID. And like I said, I'm on the comeback trail because I'm making progress. 33 pounds, I'm almost halfway to my goal. But the bigger picture is, and I'm going to get it. There's no doubt in my mind. But the bigger picture is, this isn't about me. This is about you. So Alex helped me develop what is called the 199 Guy Lifestyle Platform. The letters of lifestyle spell the successive journey. L stands for learn. That's what Mark and Darren are doing this podcast for people that are bigger, like me, because I'm still big, okay? I tell people I was fat, I'm just less fat, okay? But in all due respect, okay, what happens? You learn, okay? Then you take a Mark story, you take a Darren story, you take a 199 Guy story, and what does it do? It inspires you to show up and do the F, which is focus. You come to the gym, your wife comes to the gym, Darren, I guarantee you, she's not thinking about the kids. She's not thinking about her loving husband. She's thinking about show up and focus to do the work. E stands for more energy for your life, for your family, for your career. You got the first 4. What does the S stand for? Show up. Staying power. Keep showing up, okay? T, when you were on a team, Mark, when you were younger, what did your coach say? Trust the process. So you have a plan, you stick to it. Y stands for you. This isn't about me anymore. This is about you out there in podcast land. This is your journey. Why do you do that? Because you want it for the L, the people that love you, that you love. And finally, E is the last part of this 199 Guy Lifestyle Platform. It's a double whammy, okay? 20% is exercise, and 80% is eat right.
Mate, yeah, we could honestly, Neal, we can talk for hours. I love you, man. You're so infectious. We've got to get you back on soon and do the follow up to this because, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to read you what I prepared because we're here in the UK, right? We're coming to a close. I'm very appreciative of the time today, and I want your audience to say, I don't have 199 pounds to lose. But you know what? 10 becomes 20, 30 becomes 40, 40 becomes 50. And what happens? You can't live the life that you earned. All those years working for yourself, for your family, for whoever it was that's important in your life, okay? For the team that you work for in my particular case, okay? And that said, you get to this point where Winston Churchill, you guys know Mr. Churchill, right? Once said, history will be kind to me because I intend to write its pages. If you were here on this podcast, you already have something that sets you apart from anybody. And I actually don't have it in my hands, but you'll get it. A pen. Okay, so picture this as a pen. Okay, the power to write your own story. That's yours. I reimagined my lifestyle, rewritten my story, and set new records along the way. But as I mentioned earlier, the one thing I can't write, your script for a happier and healthier you. That's in your hands, one day at a time.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I think you're right. Lots of energy. Look, and I love his enthusiasm. Look, at the end of the day, the guy's lost a phenomenal amount of weight. He's had, like you say, the heart attack, the cancer. He's overcome it all, and fair play to Neal. We'll have to have him back on because I know there's a lot more he wants to say as well. And, you know, it is inspiring, mate. To come back from that is incredible. And to sort of then use that as fuel to help people, like, you know, like he's saying, if it just helps one person, it's worth it. And, you know, fair play to him. What a guy.
What an exciting guy. I mean, yeah, there is so much more we can carry on. He could have his own podcast just talking about himself, I think. I mean, the guy is full on. I loved it, though. And I think our audience like it, and it's something a bit different. But
a phenomenal, you know, an amazing journey, amazing story of overcoming. And, you know, it is, mate. It's like a movie, isn't it? It's almost like a script for a movie. But, and, you know, fair play to him. I hope this does inspire just one person to think, well, actually, look, if he's overcome that, then I'm going to start my journey. And we'll backlink, you know, we'll put in the show notes here a copy of his book as well. So where you can find that on Amazon or wherever we find it. And we'll have him back on, definitely.
Coming back soon, guys. Let's leave it there, mate, and we'll see you on the next episode, yeah? Have a good one.
See you soon.